When I came to Roc-A-Fella, I was at the point where I'm like, I'm coming into a scenario to where this is already laid out. This is done. These niggas is up. For me to even be a part of this is a big move for Dame even bringing me in. I'm very happy. So I always was like, and I'm exaggerating when I say this, but I'm like almost a slave. Like, can I hold the door for you? Yo, y'all niggas want something from the store? I'm going to the store. Y'all niggas,
no, you was definitely grind mode when you first came around, for sure. I never take that away.
Right.
When Cam'ron first walked into the Roc-A-Fella building, he wasn't some loud Harlem boss making demands. He was the new kid stepping into an empire already in motion. He said it himself. This wasn't a fresh start. This was a finished castle. The Roc was already standing tall, with Jay at the top and Dame running the show. So when Cam joined, he didn't come in trying to claim space. He came in with respect, almost servant-level hunger, and that's what people forget. Cam didn't waltz in expecting to be crowned. He came in trying to prove he belonged, but deep down, there was something unspoken. You can feel it in his tone, that sense of walking into someone else's kingdom, wondering how long before you could call it home.
And then, like I said, I just didn't know Jay's personality. And it was a time, I'll give you an example, right? I had K Slay in the studio.
Yeah, you told me that, yeah.
No, I didn't know if I remember told you. And Jay was like, yo, be careful who you bringing in here, because what if I would have slapped the out the. And I'm like, I didn't know. This is a word of my mother.
Cam opened up about those early days on Talk with Flea, and what stands out is how raw and honest he was about the learning curve. Nobody handed him a roadmap. Not Dame, not Jay, not anyone in that room. You had to feel your way through the politics, the subtle rules, the invisible lines that could make or break your spot. He wasn't trying to impress or challenge anyone. He held doors, ran errands, even picked up small tasks just to show respect. That was Cam's strategy. Learn the game by doing, not by being told. And in a room full of legends, that humility wasn't weakness. It was his survival tactic. Yet, even in those moments of respect, the tension was palpable. Walking into a powerhouse like Roc-A-Fella, you quickly realize that talent alone isn't enough. Everyone else seemed to have a cheat code, and Cam had to figure out the system on his own. It was a baptism by fire, and the kind of lesson that shapes legends, not just artists.
Thing about Slay that I respected, like him and Jay had their differences, but Slay always fucked with me. You know what I mean? Me and Pap did a mixtape together, introduced me to Pap when Pap first was coming up. Used to always let me come on to bring my artists up to freestyle. So I always respected that about Slay. Like he never threw me into the politics of what they had going on.
The real turning point, Cam says, was understanding Jay-Z's personality, and that wasn't something anyone handed him. One day at Baseline Studios, right after a massive hit, Jay pulled him aside. According to Cam, Jay assured him everything was cool between them. But even with that, Cam didn't fully know his standing in the inner circle yet. He walked that line carefully, confidence balanced with respect, aware that one wrong move could shift the room's dynamics. That's the invisible game inside any tight-knit label. Everyone had their rhythm, and newcomers like Cam had to learn without anyone explicitly showing the rules. And that's the beauty of this story. Cam didn't let uncertainty freeze him. He observed, absorbed, and adapted. Every interaction, every quiet glance, every subtle nod, it became part of his internal playbook. This moment was more than just reassurance. It was a test of instinct, a lesson in navigating a world where respect is earned, not given.
Trying to just make sure that I'm good. There was even a point where, like I said, the reason we did the New York City record, I guess, you know, people was feeling the way Old Boy came out, it was doing good. And Jay pulled me Jay pulled me to the side, and Baseline was like, yo, I don't know if it's tension, not tension.
Cam often reflects on those early Roc-A-Fella days as a masterclass in survival and strategy. He wasn't just learning music, he was learning how power moves worked behind closed doors. When he speaks about Dame Dash not warning him about Jay-Z's personality or the label's dynamics, it isn't bitterness, it's clarity. It's realizing that to grow, you sometimes have to experience the room firsthand. Cam respected the players around him. He mentions K Slay and Pat, the ones who let him and his artists come through without forcing him into politics. Those moments taught him the subtle lesson: no one holds your hand. You might get an opportunity, but understanding how to use it is on you. And that shaped him into more than just an artist. That pressure, that silence, the lack of a step-by-step guide, it forced Cam to become a businessman, a strategist, someone who could turn uncertainty into leverage. This wasn't just about music. It was about learning to navigate a system that rewards observation and punishes missteps. And Cam, he was taking notes.
I knew K-Slay had the drama hour where he's playing all the diss records, but it wasn't like he would play Nas records and not play Jay records. But I guess Jay was like, if you play Nas records,
don't play my shit.
Yeah, whatever. I didn't know that.
By the time Cam was finding his footing, he began seeing the bigger picture. Roc-A-Fella wasn't just a label, it was a blueprint for ownership and control. Jay, Dame, and Biggs had equity, real stakes in the game, at a time when most artists were lucky just to keep their masters. Cam watched all of it unfold, absorbing lessons that no contract could teach. It was here that Cam realized, if you wait for someone else to guide you, you'll always be behind. The real education came from trial, error, and instinct. Every interaction, every studio session, every handshake mattered, and he turned those small moments into a foundation for something much bigger. Dipset. Cam's evolution wasn't about leaving Roc-A-Fella bitter, it was about taking the lessons and flipping them into power. He built an empire under the shadow of a larger empire, proving that independence could thrive alongside legacy. And in that grind, he learned something most artists never understand. Surviving the system is more than talent. It's about strategy, patience, and knowing exactly when to make your move.
What was it, the B-Sides 2 concert? My G, man. Like that was on for the city. That was big, man.
That was super.
As Roc-A-Fella began showing cracks, tensions rising between Dame Dash and Jay-Z, Cam stayed focused on the bigger picture. He wasn't chasing drama or validation, he was chasing legacy. While others got caught up in label politics and ego clashes, Cam quietly built Dipset into a brand that could stand toe-to-toe with the very empire he was learning from. He saw how corporate money and street mentality collided and how pride could crumble empires. Instead of reacting, Cam absorbed it all. He learned which battles to fight, which to observe, and which to turn into opportunity. It was a lesson in timing and foresight, a skill that would define his career. By the time he stepped out of Roc-A-Fella, Cam wasn't just an artist anymore. He was a strategist. He understood branding, ownership, and movement building, lessons he could never have learned from a handbook. This period proved something crucial. In the right hands, every challenge is a chance to dominate. And Cam, he was just getting started. Cam didn't need to be in the center of the chaos to understand the rhythm of it. While others were spinning in the orbit of ego clashes and public perception, he watched, calculated, and moved. That awareness, seeing the unseen tension in the room, feeling the invisible lines that couldn't be crossed, became a core part of his playbook. Even seemingly minor moments carried weight. Every handshake, every nod, every introduction was a lesson in hierarchy and human behavior. Cam often recounts these instances not as gripes, but as observations, the kind of detail that separates someone who thrives from someone who fades. The way he tells it, the label wasn't just a business. It was a microcosm of power, trust, and unspoken rules that had to be navigated carefully. And yet, Cam's evolution wasn't born from confrontation. It was born from learning through observation. He watched how Jay-Z handled the pressure of celebrity and business deals, how Dame Dash fought tirelessly for artist control, and how both could coexist and collide in ways most outsiders couldn't even imagine. Each interaction became a case study, a template for what to emulate and what to avoid. That education, however, came at a cost. Cam often reflects on the tension of being a newcomer in a legacy system, the quiet awareness that one wrong move could misplace you in the pecking order. You weren't just creating music, you were navigating a living, breathing ecosystem of ambition. And the irony? That ecosystem demanded respect, hustle, and instinct, but provided no guidebook. As the label's internal pressures mounted, Cam began to see the fragility beneath the glittering success. The empire that seemed impenetrable on the surface was shifting. Decisions, alliances, and subtle slights were fracturing the rhythm that had once felt so solid. Yet Cam maintained his focus. He understood that survival required more than just talent. It required patience, foresight, and a clear vision of legacy. This period also revealed something about the culture surrounding hip-hop at the time. Fans, commentators, and industry insiders were quick to assign blame, speculate on feuds, and dissect every studio encounter. But Cam's perspective shows that much of what outsiders interpreted as conflict was actually strategy in motion. Every maneuver, every handshake, every subtle conversation had layers, and only those who understood the rhythm could see it. And then there was the artistry. While most artists would have crumbled under the weight of politics and unseen tension, Cam channeled that energy into creation. Dipset wasn't just a group or a label subsidiary. It became a movement, a statement that independence could coexist with respect for legacy. Pink chains, Harlem swagger, lyrical bravado. It all became part of a cultural phenomenon that reshaped how fans engaged with music, fashion, and identity. Behind the flash, Cam continued to study. He observed how reputation was managed, how influence was leveraged, and how alliances could shift in seconds. Every early lesson with Dame Dash and Jay-Z was being recorded, mentally, into a blueprint. And while some might interpret his independence as rebellion, in reality, it was calculated, deliberate, and measured. As the empire began to crumble, Cam was already pivoting. He saw the fractures in power, the shifting loyalties, and the opportunities to amplify his own brand. Dipset became more than a music group. It became a lifestyle, a statement, a Harlem identity that couldn't be ignored. And the timing? Perfect. Cam's awareness of every subtle tension allowed him to step in, build, and thrive, while others were distracted by ego and competition. Even now, looking back, the ripple effects are clear. The way Cam maneuvered through Roc-A-Fella, absorbed lessons, and applied them to his own empire changed the trajectory of East Coast hip-hop. The strategies he observed, patience, observation, and calculated action, are now considered fundamental for any artist looking to balance independence with influence. What's striking is the irony embedded in the story. Cam was never handed the keys, never given the playbook, and yet he turned every challenge into leverage. What seemed like a disadvantage, not being warned about Jay-Z's personality or the inner workings of the label, became the very thing that forged his independence. By not relying on anyone else's guidance, he learned how to lead, build, and dominate on his own terms. By the time he officially separated from Roc-A-Fella, Cam had a mastery that few understood. He wasn't leaving drama behind. He was leaving a classroom of lessons learned. He took what he observed, combined it with his own instincts, and turned Dipset into an enduring cultural force. Pink wasn't just a color anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, strategy, and vision. The cultural impact was immediate and long-lasting. Harlem, once a backdrop, became the epicenter. Dipset wasn't just music, it was identity. The fashion, the slang, the swagger. It spread nationwide, influencing a generation of artists and fans alike. And it all traces back to those early lessons in observation, patience, and unspoken strategy at Roc-A-Fella. Even today, fans debate whether Cam got the recognition he deserved within Roc-A-Fella. But that misses the point. Recognition isn't what he was after. Strategy, independence, and legacy were the goals. And by every measure, he succeeded. What he learned under the radar, absorbing every subtle cue, allowed him to emerge stronger, wiser, and more influential than many who were officially in the inner circle. Cam's journey is a study in navigating power structures without losing identity. It's about taking every unseen signal, every overlooked nuance, and converting it into advantage. The labels may have had their politics, the egos may have clashed, but Cam turned every potential setback into a building block. He didn't just survive Roc-A-Fella, he graduated with a blueprint for dominance. And if there's a lesson for artists today, it's clear: talent alone isn't enough. Observing, absorbing, and applying strategy, that's what separates fleeting names from enduring movements. Cam's story reminds us that the right mix of vision, patience, and timing can turn any challenge into an opportunity, and any empire into a stepping stone for personal legacy. So as you think about the path Cam took, walking into Roc-A-Fella, navigating unseen rules, and emerging with an independent empire of his own, one thing becomes undeniable. His story isn't just about hip-hop. It's about leadership, instinct, and turning the chaos of others into your own power. The man who started holding doors and running errands became the architect of a movement that continues to influence culture decades later. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.